We're singing. We're singing.
Dun, 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 dun.
It's time to talk.
Stop by.
Beauty and the Bitch.
Welcome back to another episode of Beauty and the Bitch, or as I've recently temporarily retitled it, The Beauty Stands Alone. Yes, I am the beauty, the only beauty, Mick. I'm here by myself, have no one to contrast against. I just have to be myself, and it's very upsetting. Let me tell you how upset I actually am right now. Okay, let me give you a window into my emotional disturbance. During one of the sound checks, I hooked up my very fancy microphone and pulled out all my very fancy editing software. Neither of which is true, by the way. Nothing I own is fancy, and so don't rob me. And I was doing a sound check, and I organically, with no intent of irony or even any conscious thought at all, ended a sentence with yo. So it was something to the effect of, that still isn't right, yo. And then I stopped, and I thought, who am I? What 90s queer Philly boy have I become? Like 90s queer Philly hip hop artist. That's who I have decided I am without Morgan. And I guess so. So welcome back to this music podcast. It's a music podcast now. Yo. And I will be soothing your ears with the dulcet tones of His Dark Materials number 3 / because this is kind of a confusing episode, His Dark Materials HBO series, episode 1. So, here's how, I actually had trouble titling this episode, I'm not going to lie to you, because I was like, okay, on the one hand, we've done episodes for His Dark Materials 2, and for the first book in the series as well, and of course we spoiled it as we went along. Now, of course, I have to talk, I have to talk about the end of the series. I've put all this time into reading it, or rereading it, which I'm not sure about, which gives you some idea of how I feel about the series. But I'm also aware that people who maybe haven't read the books are watching, or are planning to watch the HBO series, which, if you're about to click away, let me tell you, I recommend it. Okay, so now at least you can go with that recommendation. But here's how I'm going to do it, though. Don't click away. Don't leave me alone with my existential questions, okay? Just know this. I'm going to be splitting this episode into 2 halves. The first half, which is about the HBO show, is spoiler-free, because I've only seen 1 episode. I think there are 2 or 3 out now, and maybe 4. And I can't really spoil that much, but I'm not even going to spoil what I could spoil. So don't worry about that. Now, at some point, I will give you plenty of warning. I'll be switching to book talk for the second half of the episode, and then there will be spoilers. However, I'm not going to give a full, plot breakdown. I'm just going to talk about some themes and some characters and some actions that I thought were particularly resonant. So some things will be spoiled, some things will not be spoiled. So, that's the compromise I settled upon. Oh, speaking of existential questions, though, some people have said, Mick, they've been giving feedback about the show, and they've been like, Mick, this bit about Morgan being gone is funny, but you should probably say something that explains that she's at least okay. And I was like, okay, fair, fuck you and your advice, as I do. But then I sat around and I thought, that's pretty good advice. So I'm just going to level with y'all. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I hope that you can find it in your hearts to believe me, okay? Morgan is, she's very lucky. She's been chosen to be part of the first crew to travel to Uranus. Yes, she's going to dwell in Uranus. Yes, she is. So, I'm very proud of her. She's currently undergoing, some kind of look, girl, it's all happening in the CIA. I wasn't chosen to be part of the crew. I don't know why she's undergoing. All I know is she is completely, okay, you know what? I can't keep up this charade. I've killed her and I'm wearing her skin, okay? It was prophesied. I think we talked about it for the first time in episode 2 of this podcast. I could be wrong, but so in a way, she's here with us now. In fact, these words are coming out of her lips. Okay, well anyway, so now that that's cleared up, talking about His Dark Materials. So I hope that you're at least planning to watch this show, because like I said, I fully recommend it. You know, after the campy and low quality movie adaptation, I will say Nicole Kidman is amazing as Mrs. Coulter. She's amazing. But that was a horrible, wretched despair of a movie, and I was so afraid that this TV show was going to be more of the same. Now, of course, HBO has a great track record, and they are looking for their next Game of Thrones. I mean, they're throwing money into finding the next new epic series that becomes the equivalent of like water cooler talk, right? And so they're thinking maybe this could be it. And you know what? I was really impressed by this show. I think it's beautiful. The special effects look amazing. And they've added, without any spoilers, a ton of backstory that you can intuit in the books. But I mean, the books are YA. Or at least that's the way they read. Yes, I'm sure. They're YA. I know they're YA. And they read that way. Okay? So what they're doing in the HBO show is giving more texture, more sensory information. They're explaining more about culture of all of these different peoples that we meet. I'm very excited, actually, for the series. And there are rumors that the church is behind everything, but there are there are rumors that the show is not going to shy away from the anti-religious message of the books, which I think is very powerful. I think they're just like with the movies, just like with the books, the evangelical right is going to have something to say about this. And maybe all Christians will have something to say, because it's a harsh depiction of Christianity, of all religion. I mean, it's specifically clothed as Catholicism, this sort of stand-in in the His Dark Materials books, but it could be any religion. It could be. So I'm interested to see that drama develop. Of course, HBO is known for doing, risky things and pushing the envelope. So this is nothing new, and will not be the first time that people, backlash against something that HBO has put on. But I think for those who are open-minded to the message, who are either not religious or religious, intelligently, then I think they're going to see a lot to appreciate about this series. Now, let's get into the cast. So first of all, Daphne Keane, she plays Lyra, and I fucking love this little girl. I love her. I cannot wait to watch her grow up. She's so talented. She was Laura in the Logan movie. She was like little mini Logan. So fucking good in that. What was she, like, -3 years old? She was like a fetus acting. It was amazing. And she's only gotten better, honestly. She's really good as Lyra. I think the thing about Lyra is that she is, she's an outsider. She's mischievous, and, she's, a tomboy, quote unquote. And she likes to push boundaries. And I think this little girl does that with a lot of charm. And that's the important thing about Lyra. And I don't think they quite captured it in the movie adaptation, is she is mega charming because she's super fucking smart. She's not perfect, but she's a smart young woman. So I think Daphne Keane is an amazing choice to play this role because she has that charm. Now, Miss Coulter, how could I have read all of these books and suddenly not know? Probably because it doesn't matter. I'm just going to call her Coulter, okay? Ruth Wilson plays Coulter in this. Now, Ruth Wilson's a funny actress to me, or maybe my take on her is funny, because she has done a lot. She's big in the UK. I've not seen anything that she was in. She was in The Lone Ranger, but girl, I didn't see that. Saving Mr. Banks? Who's even heard of that? I don't know what that is. I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. Now, I think I've seen that on Netflix, but I didn't actually watch it. Dark River, I'm sure that's about a murder. I don't care. Earning the Best Actress for the titular role in Anna Christie. Honey, Anna who? I don't have time for this. Anna Christie. And then she was in Jane Eyre, which I've read but didn't really appreciate very much. She's in Suburban Shootout, obviously. What was I thinking? Now, she was also in Luther. She played Alice Morgan. That's something I would be more likely to have seen, but I did not see. So, again, I haven't seen. The Affair, I don't know. The titular character in Mrs. Wilson. Who are these women? Who are these gaggle of women? I seriously know no one. So, that's all to say, look, you can call me trash. You can call me homeless. You can call me poor, but I prefer Nicole Kidman in this role. And I think it's kind of like, I'm not even that big of a Nicole Kidman fan, but her icy appeal is so perfect for this role. And I will say, Ruth Wilson, I like her look. I mean, I think she's stunning. And she's fine, but she's no Nicole Kidman, you know. But of course they couldn't. They could afford Nicole Kidman. She probably didn't want to return to this role after that disaster of a movie. And I don't blame her. So now, I'm so excited. James McAvoy as Lord Asriel. Look, y'all. I'm going to have 7 to 20 celebrity crushes at any one time. James McAvoy has not been in my 7 to 20, but he is now. Ever since I saw it, I don't know what it is about watching a man get chased by a maniacal clown, but I am so turned on by him. He is hot. He is extremely attractive. I would even have sex with him as Professor X. Yes, I definitely would. In those movies, yes. First time I've ever thought Professor X was sexy. I'm just saying. I mean, whatever. Anyway, he plays Lord Asriel, who is, when the show starts, he is like an adventurer, he's an explorer, he's a rebel, and he is Lyra's uncle, we're told. So, I mean, he's fabulous, and I love him, and I am rooting for him. Not Lord Asriel so much, he's a complicated character, but James McAvoy, yes. And I heard he has a big dick. I'm just saying. I know that's not everything. Okay, small dick problems, you know, I feel y'all, but I'm just saying, I heard he has a big dick, and I think it tracks. Maybe not the longest dick, but girthy. That's just my guess. I'm just guessing. I'm just a man alone, sitting in Arkansas, guessing about the size of James McAvoy's cock. And also, I'm a Philly boy in Jinko jeans, and with a leather wallet attached via chain to my belt loop, and that's who I am, and that's what I'm running with, yo. So anyway, strongly recommend this show. The question, though, and I kind of brought this up earlier, is this the next Game of Thrones? I'm so excited. I think this is an ongoing question, and I think we've even mentioned it on the pod before, but there are so many shows vying to be the next Game of Thrones. And I mean that every show wants to be popular, but you know, sitcoms used to be the top. And then HBO began to prime us for these long, beautiful, complex stories. And, you know, sitcoms, I don't know if maybe the next Game of Thrones will strangely be a sitcom. I don't know. Superstore is really fucking good, but I think it's more likely to be His Dark Materials, The Witcher, which is coming on Amazon Prime. In fact, it's coming extremely soon. Is it on Prime? Oh shit, I didn't write it down. I'm pretty sure it is. Amazon. Oh no, Amazon's doing Lord of the Rings, so Witcher's on Netflix. Yes. And then HBO's also doing Watchmen, which I've seen a few episodes of and is quite good as well. Remember, that also had a movie adaptation of the graphic novel, which was a pretty good movie adaptation. All you may remember is a gigantic, shining, naked blue man, and that's all you need to remember. No, actually, I love that series. I think the movie was good. The TV series is set, I think, in the future and has a different cast. Maybe, from what I saw so far. So that could be a possibility. My bet, I think Witcher is going... I hope it's going to be really amazing. But I think His Dark Materials could be the one that really captures people's imagination. Lord of the Rings, I don't know. I mean, I'm always open to it. I'm never going to put Lord of the Rings down in any way. Amazon Prime has been iffy in their originals stuff, but they did just put out The Boys, which was really good, I thought. Watchable, anyway. Very watchable, and a smart choice of base material and original programming. So, I don't know. I don't know what the next Game of Thrones is going to be, but I will say that His Dark Materials has been getting a pretty solid reviews. Normally Morgie does this, but I was like, well, people should know. It's got an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, which is a little bit lower than I would expect, to be honest, based upon the strength of episode 1. But like I said, I haven't seen episode 2 or 3 or whatever other episodes are out at this time, so maybe it's not as good all the way through. I don't know, but I did like this. Now, this is Ben Lawrence at the Daily Telegraph, which, girl, I never bought that paper. I don't know, do they still wear, like, newsboys caps? Do you buy it from a man on a corner? I don't know how to get the Daily Telegraph. Do I actually have to telegraph and request this paper? Don't know where it's from. It could be New Jersey. It could be Paris. It could be Uranus. Morgan could be the editor of this paper. I don't know. I have no idea, but it is a paper. It does exist. And Ben Lawrence said, not on the basis of the first episode, an all-out extravaganza. Now, I think that's interesting. I'd like to come back to that. It is a fine piece of drama capturing the strangeness and childlike wonder of the books, but also their rigor and bite. I love that second part, because that is something that I think the movie adaptation was missing. The rigor, the bite. There's a lot of sharp, heretical thought, Gnostic thought, magical thought in the His Dark Materials books. There's also a lot of just bleak rationality. Or rationalism. But not rationalizing, interestingly. Okay, so back to an all-out extravaganza. What does that even mean, an all-out extravaganza? Does the show have to be obviously trying to impress me for it to be a quote-unquote all-out extravaganza? I mean, I know genuinely in episode 1, they tried to give you some indication of the views and the special effects and the la-la-la. But, I mean, why does a show have to do that right out the bat? Isn't it more powerful for the world to grow and become more spectacular as the characters grow and become more spectacular? I'm just saying, to me, that's lazy watching, or it's lazy viewership, I guess. But who am I? I mean, Ben Lawrence, he's the movie's reporter for the Daily Telegraph, which you can only get if you know how to get to Diagon Alley. And I don't even know which bricks to press. I can't remember. So, the Financial Times, who I've actually talked about before, Susie Fie, probably could be her name. Susie Fie at the Financial Times says, visually, I thought this was fascinating. Visually, it's Art Deco meets steampunk, with the airships and canal barges feeling a little less fresh than essentially when Pullman wrote them. But his themes are ever pertinent. I think that is extremely fair. And, I hadn't thought about that before, but this whole, noir future with the steampunk and the Art Deco beautiful, architecture and detailing, I'm tired of that. I am kind of tired of it. I mean, I think of something like BioShock. Even Stardust was kind of this way. If you think about the part where they're with the pirate guy, the gay pirate, the cross-dressing. Well, he's not necessarily gay, but he's definitely he's a cross-dresser. Or, well, he's interested in he's interested in dresses. He's a pirate who likes dresses. That's what I can say about him confidently. But anyway, that part of Stardust is very much this feel. And, there was a game that came out more recently, too. Play a woman, and you're... I watched someone play it, but I'll never... Anyway, though, it doesn't matter what that game is called. The point is, it's a saturated, decorative theme, right? And I'm a little tired of it, too. But, of course, when Pullman wrote the books in the 90s, I'm pretty sure, they weren't as overplayed. So, what I'm trying to say is it's a fair point, but I don't think it's quite to Tim Burton levels just yet. Okay, so actually, the last book of the series was published in 2000. So, yeah. So, essentially, it's a 90s book series. Okay, so overall, I mean, do I know a lot about the series? No. What I've seen so far, I really like. And actually, I'll be straight up honest with you. I'm tempted to get another HBO Go subscription. I canceled after Game of Thrones, and I said, I will never. Because, I'm a very passionate hater of how Game of Thrones ended. But they're kind of pulling me back in with His Dark Materials, which surprises me because, honestly, I wasn't that excited about the series. Because, like I said, the books, I can't remember if I read these books, girl. And yes, you could say, oh, Mick, well, you do too many drugs and you're getting very old and senile. And both of those things may or may not be true. But I should be able to remember if I finish this series. I will say I liked it more the second time through. If, in fact, I have finished it. I have no idea. Okay, so before we get into the spoilery part of this episode, I'm just looking over my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything brilliant that will blow you away. Normally Morgan says some bullshit while I do that, but you know what? Now I'm just standing alone. Yo. Okay, so I think I am ready to make this transition. So, my friends, if you listened all this time, thank you so much. Now go away, because we're about to talk about spoilers. Okay, so I'm taking some deep breaths. Let these people pull their phones out their pockets before I spoil everything for them. Let's talk about the last book. So, I think that this overall was just too long. This was a long book. And, when Miss Coulter, or as I'm calling her now, just Coulter, when Coulter and Lord Asriel kind of do their final showdown, that felt like the end of the book to me. And I looked up, now maybe I missed it somewhere online, but I thought maybe, did he originally want it to be a 4 series, like a what's that called? Not a trilogy, but a quadrille. Did he want 4 books in this series? Because after the Coulter showdown, everything feels tacked on to me, and I felt like maybe I just cared too much about those characters and what was happening, but I felt like that was the climax of this book. And so then I looked down at my fucking Audible. Okay, so I did listen to this last one. I don't know why I'm saying that like I think it's cheating. I believe if you really listen to audiobooks, it counts as reading them, I think. But maybe that's a hot take. See, I even get off by myself. I go off on tangents. I'm doing one now. Right down to Yoville. Yo? Anyway, so let's talk about some very specific things in this book. Because I said I'd try to avoid even full spoilers here because I'm the best. So first of all, there's just something, this is a small thing, but I think this is so interesting. Come through Wikipedia with this information about changes to the US edition of the 3rd book of this series. Okay, so Pullman's publishers have primarily marketed the His Dark Materials series to young adults, but Pullman also intended to speak to adults, just plain adults, old adults, you might call us. The Amber Spyglass is partly a reevaluation of the biblical tale of Adam and Eve. Pullman said Lyra's sexual awakening is exactly what happens in the Garden of Eden. Why the Christian church has spent 2,000 years condemning this glorious moment, well, that's a mystery. I want to confront that, I suppose, by telling a story that this so-called original sin is anything but. It's the thing that makes us fully human. See, I like that. He's so shady in his quotes. That's the bite, right? That's the bite that has to be in any adaptation of his works because he's biting. He's a biting person. He writes biting stories. Okay, so here come the changes. Ooh, my voice cracked. The North American edition alters passages describing Lyra's incipient sexuality. The text in the UK edition includes this passage in the chapter Marzipan. As Mary said that, Lyra felt something strange happen to her body. She found a stirring at the roots of her hair. She found herself breathing faster. She had never been on a roller coaster or anything like one, but if she had, she would have recognized the sensations in her breast. They were exciting and frightening at the same time, and she had not the slightest idea why. The sensation continued and deepened and changed as more parts of her body found themselves affected, too. She felt as if she had been handed the key to a great house she hadn't known was there, a house that was somehow inside her, and as she turned the key deep in the darkness of the building, she felt other doors opening, too, and lights coming on. She sat trembling, hugging her knees, hardly daring to breathe, as Mary went on. Okay, so let me tell you, I love that. It's not graphic, it's not disgusting, but it does fully capture that, that bloom of puppy love, I think. Uh-oh. I don't know if the microphone picked that up, but someone outside is having trouble. Oh my gosh. I live in the middle of a mall, actually. Little known fact. Okay, so this is how they amended that beautiful, sort of poetic description of something everyone experiences, right? Including younger girls. Okay, this is how they amended it. As Mary said that, Lyra felt something strange happen to her body. She felt as if she had been handed the key to a great house she hadn't known was there, a house that was somehow inside her, and as she turned the key, she felt the other doors opening up deep in the darkness and lights coming on. She sat trembling as Mary went on. So, I'm glad they kept the metaphor of the great house she had known was there that was inside her. I mean, that's a beautiful metaphor, but they took out all the body sensation. You know what they did? They twilighted it. They made it just a hint of sexuality, but no physical description of what happens to your body under that flush of first love, which she's feeling for someone. Haha. Spoilers avoided. Actually, that's a kudos to Wikipedia for explaining that without spoiling anything. Without spoiling much. Anyway, so I thought that was just hilarious. Thanks America for being so fully fucking irritating, right? And it says here on Wikipedia that some other passages have been modified, but I assume they weren't as modified. I don't understand why this is a problem. I mean, I understand people being prudish and not wanting any indication of sex, but it's so well written, this description. I mean, why did they cut the she had never been on a roller coaster part? I mean, is it the word breast? She would have recognized the sensations in her breast. I mean, they could have changed it to chest, if that's the problem. I just don't understand. It's so ridiculous, and I disagree with everyone, and except the people who agree specifically with everything I agree with. And so that's where I am in life. Let's talk about the underworld and the Harpies in the underworld. Now, if you haven't read this book, it's enough to know that at some point they make a descent into an underworld. I'm not even going to tell you who makes the descent. Well, I might accidentally tell you, but I'll try not to, okay? So there is a descent. Honestly, when you're reading a certain kind of epic story, a descent into the underworld, yeah, you don't know exactly when it's going to happen or if it will in modern storytelling, but it should never really surprise you because people have been descending into the underworld since Western culture was first telling itself stories. Now, that's just the culture I know best. I'm not saying people weren't descend to the underworld in all kinds of other cultures. I know quite a few that did, just off the top of my head, in Central and South America, but I don't know enough about that to talk about that. What I'm saying is, it's part of the hero's journey. You're all happy dancing around in the sunlight, then some bad shit goes down, and then you have to go down to the underworld and sort that shit out, and then hopefully you can come back up to the sunshine. Aeneas does it, Odysseus does it, Persephone does it, who's the guy? Oh, I always forget their name. The one who his wife dies of a snake bite and then she's down. I'm going to have to, should I look it up? Does it matter? Yes, because if you don't know, you'll be annoyed that I didn't remember. And if you do know, you'll be pissed at me because I never gave you the satisfaction of saying. Okay, it's Orpheus, obviously. And I can't believe I forgot that. Orpheus and... Now, I grew up saying Eurydice, but the way they said it in collage was Eurydice or something like that. I'm just going to say Eurydice because it's what comes naturally, and because I'm poor white trash, and some things never change. Orpheus goes down to save Eurydice. And things go wrong, and I'm not going to spoil all of Greek mythology for you, but Hercules does it. He goes down to the underworld. Theseus does it. I don't think Perseus does it. No. But, I mean, I'm just saying a lot of people do, so it's not a shock. They go to the underworld. Now, what is really interesting is that they meet these Harpies in the underworld. And here's where my fucking classics knowledge comes to play. This is why you should send your children to a liberal arts college, because they can read young adult books and find themes that mirror themes in classical literature, and it what? Makes them feel smart. That's what I paid all my money for. No, but... Oh, I got too real with that one. That dagger cut a little deep. I cut myself. But seriously, yeah, this is a young adult series. Yeah, this is his dark materials. But this is how liberal arts education enriches everything. Because the more you read, the more you hear, the more you're familiar with, the more you see the echoes of it and the threads of it in other things. It's called culture, darling. I suggest you acquire some. So the interesting thing about the Harpies is that throughout the course of their time, because I believe they're only introduced in the third book of this series, which, by the way, is called the Amber Spyglass. Have I even said that? I don't know. Throughout the course of this book, they go from cruel and hateful, and I am spoiling this bit, but it's just a small bit, to kindly and protecting. They're protective spirits, kind of like gargoyles, or like the Eumenides from the third play and the Oresteia. So if you're not super familiar with the Oresteia, no tea, no shade, you're actually probably more familiar with it than you think you are. So it was written by Aeschylus. It's a trilogy of Greek tragedies, and it starts off with Agamemnon, then goes to the libation bearers, and then finishes up with the Eumenides. This is the story of how Clytemnestra kills Agamemnon. Clytemnestra is killed by Orestes, their son. Electra's hanging out being sad, and then Orestes is on the struggle bus from place to place as the Furies hound him for killing his mother, who of course he killed because she killed his father. So it's very, very chunky, very bloody is what I should say, very gory, a lot of death in this. But what's really interesting about this ancient Greek trilogy, at least to me, is that in the Eumenides, Orestes, who's been traveling from place to place, just hounded. He's horribly sad. So just like Oedipus and Oedipus at Colonus, or what happens to Oedipus after he stabs out his eyes from sleeping with his mother and killing his father. Just like Oedipus, Orestes is a sad soul, and he wanders into Athens, and there Athena intercedes on his behalf, along with Apollo. And what they do is they set up the first court, the first jury in the Western world. I mean, mythically. And it's in Athens, and the Furies are the prosecutors. Apollo takes his defense. 10 citizens are chosen to be the jury, and Athena is the judge. And what we see in that play, and in the Oresteia as a whole, is the change from retribution, sort of blood wars, blood vengeance, into a court of law. Now, is any court of law perfect? No. But I do think it's better than feeling like you have to kill your mother because she killed your father. Right? Because Orestes he was conflicted about it, and his whole life would have been much better had his mother just gotten hauled off to jail. Because he grew up an orphan, essentially, anyway. So anyway, the point is, the Furies at the end of the Oresteia are renamed the Eumenides, from the Furies to the kindly ones, essentially. And that is exactly what happens to the Harpies in the Amber Spyglass. So, also, in Greek mythology, the Furies tortured the dead who weren't heroes, more or less, who were suicides, or we see a lot of this in the Aeneid when they go to the underworld, but the Harpies tortured the dead, certain dead. So that also tracks over. And then, oh my God, I screamed when this happened. When someone renames one of the Harpies from no name to gracious wings. Literally, another translation of the Eumenides is the gracious ones. So this is very obviously homage. And I love to see this sort of reflection of Greek myth in his Dark Materials. And honestly, I'm sure it's not the only one. This one stood out to me, but Pullman is very consciously telling an epic tale. It's an epic, heroic tale on par with Prometheus stealing fire from the gods, or as he says quite often, even said in that quote, the Garden of Eden, right? These are creation myths. These are big universal themes. And anyway, and you love to see it. Who doesn't love to see it? Now, on the Azrael Coulter showdown, which is what I'm calling it, that happens in this book, I'm going to try to avoid exactly what happens here, but if you've read the book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I fucking loved this. Like I said, this should have been the climax of the whole damn book, because I was fucking into it. And let me tell you something about this whole series, and I hope this holds true in the HBO series. When someone dies in this series, bitch, you feel it. You feel it. For one thing, because they've got this little demon, this little soul, external soul type thing that also dies, and it's always a beautiful or cute animal, you know. But anyway, girl, I cried, and I thought this part was so well written. There is a fight, there is a struggle, and I wasn't sure. And at one point, girl, you better get ready. You better batten down the hatches, because this shit is graphically violent. I felt a little queasy. I was clearing stuff on the land. I was out there on my homestead being a forest man, and I had to sit down on a log and take a few breaths, because someone had got their skull caved in, and I learned about it. I read about bloodshot eyes. I read about pieces of skull rubbing past each other. I mean, girl, it goes in. It's like Degrassi. It goes there. It's so good, though. And the villain in that scene is so powerful and scary. I was really obsessed with that. In fact, I'll tell y'all a secret. In that confrontation, a powerful regent dies. And then there is another villain, quasi-villain, who Lyra and Will go on to fight in the rest of the book, which I told you seemed added on to me and not very good. Girl, I don't know. Listen, I really was listening carefully. I mean, I'm living my life over here, but I was listening. I somehow missed the ultimate death. Talk about anticlimactic much. The whole last, I would say, third of this book, maybe quarter, was just like Will and Lyra doing like a mopey love story type thing. And yeah, it was cute for a second, but it wasn't cute for 2.5 hours. I mean, that's a different kind of book than what I wanted to read or listen to. And I'm not against romance in YA at all. And I'm not against a story that includes romance, though I'm always happy when I come across a story that doesn't include romance or only includes queer romance. Those things are very rare. And I wouldn't like them if they were super common either, honestly. Romance tires me out. So that last bit I was not a fan of, and I missed probably the most important moment in the last bit, and honestly, I'm not going to go back. I could look up where it happens and go back and listen to it. Fuck it. I read the Wikipedia page. I know what's coming down the line. Okay, so last but not least. See, I'm hardly ruining anything. This is so great. Someone send me flowers. Not daisies, okay? And not chrysanthemums. Are you fucking kidding me with You know what I would like people to send me is potted herbs. Yes. Not smokable herb. I don't want to go to jail. Though, you know, you can smoke most, like, culinary herbs as well. I'm just giving you all a sneak peek into my thought process that may or may not be in my plan to sell herb cigarettes. And when you want some herb cigarettes made by me, I mean, I'm just saying, put the word out. Fill the trimmers. This is coming. Let's talk about Coulter. So, Coulter's character undergoes a change in the third book. It is a noticeable change, and it took me a while to get on board with this character about face. Okay? I will say that. In the end, it's kind of like Harry Potter's love spell that somehow is the most powerful thing on earth. I mean, you get it. If you've ever loved someone, you get it. But you're also like, love, again, is the answer. But that's essentially why culture changes, why she changes her course in life. Or does she? No, I mean, she does. And I didn't believe it for a long time. And I still don't really believe it. And the story's over. So, I thought that was a little iffy, but I will say it was easy for me to love her, and it was so easy for me to find her sympathetic and to feel for her if and when she is brought low, because she's so fucking fabulous. I mean, to me, she's Nicole Kidman. When I first read these books, like I said, they didn't make much of an impression, but I imagined someone like Nicole Kidman, someone who looked like her and had that statuesque sort of thing going on. And I just don't know if Miss Ruth Wilson is going to fill those shoes very well. Overall, I'm not going to reread this series ever again, probably. I mean, I don't know. Who can say that? But I'm not planning on it. It's not going back in the to-read list. It is read and it is done. But I do like that I finally finished it. And I like the theme so much of this series. And I know that was something that Morgan and I agreed on from the beginning. In fact, it's one of the reasons we chose to do this series. And I'm glad that this kind of literature exists for children and for adults, for teenagers, for the elderly. I say read it to your fetus. Because it's just a different worldview from the Chronicles of Narnia fantasy that we're normally given. And if you're like me, you know, science fiction is what it is, but I can't do fucking hard science fiction. I'm so sorry, but I don't like numbers, and I don't really like numerologists or scientists or technicians or mathematicians or even engineers. I'm a little iffy on, okay? So you invariably, these people are never, well, you send me a sensitive writer into space and I will try to read that story. That's what I'll tell you. Okay? But I'm tired of getting, like, you know, hard-bitten female corporals and, like, fucking awkward, selfish scientists. I'm done with that. My point is, it's hard to find fantasy that has the bite that hard sci-fi has, but the heart that fantasy has. And I think that His Dark Materials bridges that gap pretty well. I mean, there are holes in the bridge, and if you fall into a hole, it's a long, dark, yawning chasm. As they say, a yawning chasm. They say that in some parts of the world. If you haven't heard it, you're just not worldly, and that's okay. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention, I didn't even write this down, it's not in my notes, the Chevalier, oh fuck, what are they called, those people? Tialis and Salmakia are these two little Gallivespian spies. Now, the Gallivespians, I believe, are added in this third book, or we're introduced to them. And they're like fairy-type people. And they've got these poisonous stingers in their feet, and they ride dragonflies, and they're like assassins, spies. You know, they're fairy-type people. I fucking love them. And let me tell you, I was altogether too invested in them and in their lives and in their journey. And because, see, they're like insects, like some insects, they have a very short lifespan. Something like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years. And so, first of all, one wonders how they get so fucking mature and proud in that time. Because that's, you know what I don't like? Ooh, see, it's not a tangent, but the river's flowing fast now. The words are coming fast. You know what I don't like is when a race in a fantasy story or trilogy or series is known as a proud race, quote unquote. Like, for example, dwarves in Lord of the Rings. Here's what I don't like about it. I do think there are proud races, but I don't like it when each individual of that race is equally proud and, like, haughty. You know what I mean? It strikes me as untrue, because there are people with low self-esteem in every culture. So why is everybody proud? In fact, I would even hazard to guess, unless they are culling these sad sacks from their society, in a normally proud culture, the depressed people would stand out even more, and they would be even more sad, because they're like, everyone around me is so, like, tough and proud and full of themselves, and I feel like I'm the only one who knows I'm shitty, right? And so those people would be extra notable. That's all I'm saying. I just don't believe that all the dwarves feel equally good about themselves and dwarfdom. And I don't believe that all of the Galavespians are equally proud and haughty. That being said, I love that they're proud and haughty. They're all grand dams and fancy lads, and I'm into that. I wish that they had been introduced way earlier in the series, actually. The witches come back in book 3. Not anything mind-blowing. Some sweet conversations, honestly. Nothing great. And we also meet angels in this book. Truly meet them. And, well, I'm pulled two ways about angels, okay? My final grade is a B for the angels, because they seem like really weak to me in a way that just, I know they're just supposed to be messengers and whatever, in like biblical theory, but like they do have powers too. And with a few notable exceptions, I just feel like the angels are just weak sauce. Yo, that's a thing I don't often say. Weak sauce, lame sauce. Where did that come? That's a 90s thing, isn't it? I'm not into that. I don't like that for me, and I don't like that for you, but you don't have to listen to me. Yo. I do like that the angels are shown to be pretty much across the board, like, gender neutral, queer, open. They're just, I like that they're not in heteronormative relationships, whatever that means for an angel. Could they have had more character and more power? Yes, to both. Could they have played a larger role in the penultimate sort of climax of the series and in this book as a whole? Yes, they could have. They're kind of like in a way, they could have been the eagles from Lord of the Rings of this book, in that they could, it seems to me, have somehow fixed everything. I don't know, they're angels, right? But I mean, that's of course one of the major themes of this series, is that the celestial, the heavenly, the host, all that, they're just beings, and in some ways they're much less powerful than humans, which I buy, but I don't like. Okay? What else in this? Oh, we get to meet, who are those weird ass? Mary Malone finds herself some creatures called the Mulatha. Honey, no. I don't like it. I was bored. I couldn't imagine what these things looked like. Some kind of fucking Evangelion angel that's just a tetrahedron, or I don't know. Honey, girl, they roll on nuts. Who has time? I mean, genuinely, their biggest predators are seagulls. I mean, who wants to put time into this? I know Morgie, I remember Morgie saying this was like her favorite part, and I'm not shitting on that, but I'm shitting next to it because I didn't enjoy it, and I want to have a signpost that tells me not to go back there again. What else? The armored bears come back, of course. I don't know. I'm not that into the Iron Bears. Maybe this is why I wasn't into this series. I feel like my favorite race or like world of people are the Galavespians, and they come in only in the last book. The witches aren't what I want them to be. The armored bears are resounding meh. The Egyptians are pretty cool, but we don't get much of them in the books. You can see already we're going to get a lot more of the Egyptians and their society and their way of life in the HBO series, and I'm super excited about that. I don't know. The angels were meh, and this random African army that came out of nowhere, I would like to know who voiced him. Who voiced the African commander, because he had a beautiful voice, and I've heard it before, but where the fuck did he come from? I mean, these friar assassins, these fucking monks. Girl, who gives a shit about this? I say don't, you know what, this is, ooh, I'm going to literature hell for this, but I say don't even read the fucking books. I think the series is going to be good, and girl, watch the series. Now, if you've listened this far, you've had some stuff spoiled for you, but not very much, or you've already read the books, in which case I say, do not reread these books. Don't put yourself through this. Maybe you will love them. I mean, maybe you have horrible taste. I'm just kidding. I'm mostly kidding. I'm primarily kidding. I will never reread them again. Okay, so, my friends, that is another episode just full of beauty and beauty alone. I mean, you asked for it and we gave it to you. You know? I mean, in all your comments, you said, oh, get rid of that Morgan. It's all about the Mick. The Mick show. And so really we're just acquiescing to your desires. If you would like to hear more of Beauty and the Bitch or The Bitch Stands Alone... Oh, fuck, I fucked it up. I called myself the bitch. Should I cut this out? No, I'll let Morgan get her jollies. You can follow us on WordPress at bnbcast.wordpress.com. You can search Beauty and the Bitch on YouTube to find almost every single episode of our podcast. We also, on our WordPress blog, have a feed where you can listen to every single episode. You can find us on pretty much all the podcast apps. I mean, podcast apps are dime a dozen, and podcasters are fucking... what's a phrase that says a dozen out of a dozen? Everybody's a podcaster. So I can't promise you we're on every podcast hosting app, but we're on the main ones. And what else? Oh, you can follow me at Parker_Homestead if you want to see me fail at basic land improvement projects. And you can follow Morgan at Morganized Mess. That's both on Instagram there. Morgie, if you really want to know how she's doing, go follow her Instagram because she'll give you some clues. And I gotta tell you now, if you've already called 911, you're gonna have to call back and tell them it was a mistake because I did not steal her skin. And also, she's much smaller than me. I could, maybe make gloves or something, but I couldn't completely inhabit her skin. Y'all think ahead. Think about this. Janet Reno would be a better fit for me. If anyone knows Janet Reno and thinks that she might want to contribute her skin to my cause and my closet, please hook us up. Fucking love Janet Reno. Okay, and did I hit everything? Certainly not. Oh, our Patreon. Okay, so here's the thing with the Patreon. We are talking about Evangelion, Neon Genesis Evangelion. If you haven't seen it, you're trash. If you haven't rewatched it recently, you're still trash, because you know why? Everyone's trash, and whether or not you watch a TV show doesn't make you trash or not trash, okay? I have to let you know that right now. But this is a really good TV show, especially if you think you don't like anime, because frankly, I'm in that camp of judgment and etc., and I'm like, ugh, anime, I don't know about this. But Evangelion is fucking great. It's one of the only animes that I have been touched by, and I'll tell you, I've watched this show 9 times in its entirety. I think it's an amazing classic. If you want to hear us dissect every possible bit of this show, girl, you don't even have to watch the goddamn show, or you could watch along with us, which is really what I'd recommend, but you be yourself. I mean, but you live your life. All you have to do is donate $1. Maybe it's $2. I can't remember. Fuck, I should know that off the top of my head. $1 or $2 a month, and you get an extra long episode in which we are discussing Evangelion 5 chapters at a time. 5 episodes at a time. Well, potato. I'm into it, girl. And if you're interested in hearing Morgie's voice, as of now, we're planning for her to still be in perpetuity on these Patreon episodes. Now, that's not to say she's not coming back here, but I'm just saying there's not supposed to be any break in the Patreon episodes. So if you want to hear her being fabulous and trying to be as fabulous as me, then you should be on our Patreon. Now, currently we have 0 patrons. That could be because we only have 1 episode up. I think that's fair. It could also be because people just don't have any money. You know what I say? Skip the coffee. Get off the cigarette, stop smoking the ganj, and give us your fun money. Because we deserve it. Because we're both white. That went in a place I did not expect. Okay, I think that's it for this week. Let us know what you think of this episode. Let us know what you think of us just being me. Let's talk about that. Someone send me a friend. Bye.
Do you have a home? Beauty and the Bitch.
You
look bitch. Beauty and the Bitch.
Beauty and the Bitch.
Bitch.